Thank you, Sarah. I'm Angela, and you're going to meet the other poets in a moment. Sanctuary was made possible because of funding from the Arts Council of Northern Ireland. And the idea occurred to me when I thought about, I want to write poetry, and Sanctuary just seemed to be the theme that was on my mind and on everybody's mind. Amongst the poems in the book, there are various aspects of Sanctuary because it's a very rich theme. And these are the themes that we're not going to read you poems about tonight, but which are in the book. There's work in the book on the body as a sanctuary, on prisoners of conscience. And we hope to be doing an event in the autumn with Wales Pen Cymru, that's Pen International, the campaigning group for prisoners of conscience. And Viviana Fiorentino, who has contributed to our book, is on the board of Irish Pen. So we're looking forward to doing something later in the year on that. And there's nothing that we're going to read you tonight which is directly religious, though there are some poems in the book. And we're not reading you anything about the pandemic either, though you will also find that subject covered in the book. What we are going to do this evening is I'll read you some of my poems, and then you've got photography, a song, and a film to watch as well. So I'm telling you, it's going to be great. So I wanted to write a book about Sanctuary, and immediately I thought, I don't want to do it on my own, because Sanctuary to me is a very hosting concept. You know, it's a place that you're welcome in, and I didn't want to be in there on my own. So I decided to look for another pair of poets in Wales and in Northern Ireland, and I found 2 men and 2 women, and then a 5th person, Glenn Wilson, who acted as the mentor for my work, and he contributes a poem as well. So the poets will introduce themselves to you in a moment. I think that, in fact, I'll ask Glenn to start doing that now.
Thank you, Angela. My name's Glenn Wilson. I'm a poet from, I live and work in Portadown. I live with my wife and 2 children here. I won the Seamus Heaney Award for New Writing in 2017, the Jonathan Swift's Creative Writing Award in 2018, and the Trim Poetry Competition in 2019. I've also done work with the Northern Irish football team. I was commissioned by IFA to do 2 poems that were screened on Sky Sports for them. I've also appeared on 2 versions of the Poetry Jukebox, one in Belfast and one that was an audio post was set up in Paris as well. I have a book out with their press, An Experience on the Tongue, and I'm currently working towards my 2nd collection, which is based on the history of Portadown, where I live. I think, was there anything else on that? I recently won the Padraig Fallon Award in 2021.
So it's me next. So my name is Csilla Toldi, originally from Hungary. I was 18 when I left Hungary and lived in many countries, in Germany for a longer time. And I worked as a translator first, and then eventually in 95, I came to the UK with a writer's visa to work on films. I have a master's in creative writing for film and television, and I won awards with my scripts internationally. My passion is video poetry, so I create video poems. Regarding my poetry, published poetry, I have 3 short pamphlets published with Lapwing Belfast. One of them was The Emigrant Woman's Tale, which was about my life behind the Iron Curtain growing up there, and it became a stage show which I did with Phil Campbell, Northern Irish musician. And apart from this, I was shortlisted for the Britport Prize with one of my poems, and I have been widely published in magazines. Recently, I became very interested in translating poetry as well. And I actually can thank Viviana Fiorentino for this, because she inspired me in this direction. And my novel Bed Table Door is forthcoming with Wrecking Ball Press in 2022.
So, Viviana?
Hello, everyone. It's a joy to be here tonight. I'm Italian. I came here in Northern Ireland in 2013, and I came from Germany actually at that time, because I spent a few years around in Europe. I teach Italian. I'm a lecturer in Italian at the Institute of Italian Culture in Dublin, and I'm also a facilitator for creative writing for Word of the Street by Maria McManus. I write in Italian. I wrote a novel and 2 poetry collections, and also write in English. I publish my poems in anthologies and various journals, but my activity as a poet is a kind of intertwined with activist activities. I co-founded some initiatives like Letters with Wings with Cilla Toldi, is here too, which is an initiative that invites people to write poetic letters to writers in prison. I'm also board member of the Irish Pen. And yes, I'm also an activist in the sense that I visit immigrants in detention center in Northern Ireland. Yes, that's me. Thanks, Angela.
Okay, Phil.
Hi, everyone. I'm a writer and a photographer. I live in South Wales. I've created books on a variety of subjects, from Haitian voodoo, the Spanish Civil War, Paul Robeson, Welsh football, and also Dylan Thomas, as well as 6 major books on the holy wells and sacred springs of Britain, most of which have also been published by Seren. I'm currently working on a number of projects, one of which is the Living Wells of Ireland, and also a book of poems, both old and new, inspired by Welsh and Irish wellspring sites. Seren has recently also published my new book, my kind of lockdown book, I think, called The Golden Valley, a visual biography of the Garoo, and more about that later, because that images from that book will be illustrating the poem I'm going to read today, the poem that's in Sanctuary.
Thank you, Phil. I don't think I made it clear that each of these poets has written a poem for the book in collaboration with me. And I remember Phil asking me several times, what does collaboration mean? What will I have to do? And in each case, I said, well, we'll do whatever suits us so that the work comes out right. And it's very different working with a poet to asking a poet to contribute a poem to a book, because working with a poet in the creation of a poem means both people have to really be brave and patient and engage with each other. And I think I can say on behalf of us all that we feel it really has worked well, that it's been a very happy and satisfactory experience. I'm going to introduce the missing poet who couldn't be with us this evening. His name is Mahyar, and he's an Iranian who now lives in Wales. And in the book itself, each poet contributes something to the introduction to the book. And this is what Mahyar says. Angela asked me to participate in the Sanctuary project, and it sparked my imagination. And the outcome was my poem, You. I shared it with Angela, and we went on an imaginative journey to know more about you. And that's really interesting, because he's saying it was the 2 people together who opened the poem up and made it what it became. So I will read his poem later. So I'm going to start with 3 poems that I've written for the book. And these poems are about war. Here we are. And I realized looking at them that they're also about the burden that we put on members of the services, of the armed services. So this one is called, Since the Evacuations from Kabul, must sanctuary now imply its opposite? The open sewer beside the airport gate, the foreigner's pragmatic rush to quit, the loophole shrunk by each departing state, the frenzied sea of documents held high to prove the right to have a promise kept, a worthless currency, they prove a lie, expedient, well meant, swiftly sidestepped. Is there a scathing truth we have to face, that outside every sanctuary there's a hell where howling crowds who crave the sacred space clamor to join the saved? Prison cell and sanctuary, keys turn, locks click, bolts slide. Only one can open from inside. And I'll go on now to read a poem in Ulster Scots. It won the prize for the inaugural Linen Hall Ulster Scots writing competition this year. And it's about the same set of circumstances, the evacuations from Kabul. Ulster Scots is the speech form that developed when waves of settlers from Scotland came over to the north of Ireland from the 1600s on. So it's a mixture of Scots, Irish, and English. This one, here we go. I just need to tell you some vocabulary. Shoulders is shoulders, vernenst is opposite. Lead means language. Madesprachel means make an upward lunge. Beeld is a sanctuary or a safe place. Sich is a sigh. Scundert is ashamed. A hersel, a herdless sheep, is a flock of sheep without a shepherd. Verfochen means exhausted, and thaveless means you don't know where to go. Okay, here we go. His words, and I was there. Kabul, at a gate in the airdrome wall, a gap nae breder na my shooters. For next a thrang of desperate folk, me atween them and ut. A woman wi' her baby, ticht to her breast, put her left hand to my face, in that owl lead that says all the world ruin. Soldier, be kind, take pity on me. Like that, somebody made a sprachel to get over the wall. The whole crowd riz, breath, bodies, banes swept forward. She was down, a welter of feet and hands. Somehow I pulled her out. My billies held the line. Safe in the bale, her and the child, deed in my arms. Resilient, the soldier went. We're trained to be, there should have been in way lament. Clocks stopped, flags lured. There's me in my wee kitchen, the Ulster rain soft on the window. The only minute's silence, his long sich. Scundered to my soul I was with shame. Yen a hersel a herdless sheep, verfochen, thaveless. Yet we all on soldier, gin us his word a witness. What then should we do? I went to the thrashel on my kitchen door. The soft hands of the rain, my face, then owl lead that says, open your heart and let your neighbours in. And we move on now to something more recent again, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The Russian invasion of Ukraine, first day. Spreaders of dread, heralds of worse to come. The helicopters, 1, 3, now 6, hover in a ring, their noses down, tails up, like dragonflies positioning to prey, heads together, the red roofs of a village close below. These we could take as easily as any other lives. The non-comms mobile footage on my screen lurches, tilts. How can she tell where the next one's coming from? Blinded by noise, but there the camera focus locks and renders me a witness to their obeisance. These we are taking, Lord, as easily as any other things. From those red-roofed houses, debris billows up, slow as the smoke of incense. At this unhideable pain, the copters with a ponderous grace dip and lift and turn and leave their payload in my mind, where it replays each gesture in that violating ritual. Hybrid machines we are, unreachable, who once were men. But I always glimpse the mobile wielder's hand. Despite the obliterating noise, I hear her high, thin, wordless cries. And I cling to this, that her whole being voiced not awe, but horror, as she held to a human scale, pity and pain. The very only bridges raptors must cross to ever be men again. So Glenn is going to read for us next.
This is a poem called Border Crossing, written at Nosa to Hidalgo, which is on the Mexican border. There is buzzing behind the bevel of the two-way mirror. I imagine the voices of the hidden judges there. They never reveal themselves, the faceless critics. As Border Patrol officers ask questions in metronome. Where did you come from? Where were you going? Looking clues to my genesis, they have learned my language for interrogation, not exploration. And they do not enjoy the rolled R sounds as they lose momentum through repetition in their mouths. I rub my wrists, sore from the handcuffs, yellowed by corn. A musician's hands, my mother used to say of them. Everyone traces scars, knows their contours better than the unblemished skin that has always been faithful. In my family home, there's a single picture of me, making a sandcastle at the beach, bejeweled with shells of long-left creatures, defended by a shallow moat. Did I disappoint my mother that I never built upon that promise? Even worse, did I disappoint that boy in the photograph? His was a smile so easily widened with wonder. Where was that wonder lost? The Atlantic? Are we all doomed to disappoint our former selves with dreams that track out with the tide? Do the happiest of us acknowledge disappointments and dream flatter dreams that tap the sap of experience? It's like finding out we can dance without music, or find God reconciled in scripture and the resonance of a bumblebee. I want to become the song I sing as it leaves my lips, up through blue oaks into places we don't even know exist. The men, tired of my silence, leave me to echo in my defiance.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm going to read a poem called Consider. I don't think we have the words on the screen. So Sarah, I'll just go ahead and read. Consider, you'll have to listen now. Consider, why do you still call me refugee? Do you want me to be forever fleeing? I have fled. Now I am here, trying to keep both feet on the ground and find my balance. Sometimes I feel I have two hearts. One, the first created, taut as a drum skin in my chest, trembles at far-off shifts of energy in the fault lines of the home I left. The other has grown itself around the first, as lymph spreads on the surface of a wound, as albumin, fragile, tremulous, helps a new life mesh itself together somehow. I was a refugee. Now I am here, where I have to do so much explaining, where I have to live so much on your terms. And I'm growing this second heart as bravely as I can. Where I came from will always be where I come from. And now I come from, and so let me be here. I'm going to read Mahyar's poem. So Mahyar's poem is, I think, very impressively in rhyming couplets. You. Holy places and the holy books, no, they didn't satisfy me. They are not as they look. I've been looking for you, haven't I? Gave me a familiar smile and asked me, why? To live happily ever after. But I was there all the time, you answered me with laughter. The sound of laughter, the dark night and insomniac, I went deep inside myself with a dizzy flashback to my mummy motherland where I am banned. When I was enjoying the northern coast on the summer sand, mum's kind cuddle, sweet dreams far from reality. When dad's strong hands saved me from insanity. When I was writing a little love letter, when my eyes were getting wet and wetter, when I was drinking shot after shot, when I was reading Rubaiyat, when I was reading Khayyam's couplets, when the book got wet with my tears droplets, when I was waiting, restless, when I proposed, and she said yes. When there was no hope and I was dazed, my child was healed, the doctors were amazed. When the world forgot me and life said, goodbye, fella, when I had nothing left except Maria's umbrella. When the army of thoughts was my mind's aggressor, nobody understood me. There he came, the humble professor. When I was close to the end and there were no ways, you hugged me and brought me back to life after 3 days. The more I reflect, the more I remember. Yes, you are right. You've been always there. Believe and enjoy your moments. Just remember, I am always with you. I am always there. And now we go to Silla.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you again for including me in this collection. It's an honor to be here. So this was a very personal journey for me because I had to go back over 30 years. And as I said before, I was 18 when I left Hungary, so I was nearly a child. So maybe those experiences had to be dug up from very deep. And it ended up as a trilogy, as a sequence of poems. Sanctum trilogy. Resistance. First it was a cave, the mother's body. Then it must have been a den, a blanket, a tent hung over the table, or a hazel bush. Remember that earthen home? You the dad, me the mom. Then it must have been found between the leaves of a book, I'm sure. A novel I wished was endless. Later, the discovered peace of the church, forgiveness, between party meetings, dialectic materialism, Lenin and co. In the long shadow of the Tsarevich, Alexei Nikolaevich Romanov, a cherished boy with a blood disorder, killed by Bolsheviks. This was a story you gave me. The brutality of detail was your imagination. The heat of the sun still emanated from the asphalt. We were sitting in a park, preferring the star-studded cave of the night. A ferret ran through. embalming us in a moment of awe. In my memory, the church gates are open. You knew even then that you would die by suicide. It was written in the stars. And all I wanted to do was to run away back into that womb. Instead, I took the road under my feet, saddened the people I loved, who believed that one had to die where one was born, even if by suicide, obeying, if only the stars. Later, I heard your corpse was found by a flatmate. You bestowed on her a story too. I sought sanctuary in the free West, forever misaligning my charts. Seeing him, our friend, who had Asperger's, we just did not know what to call it. A genius, I thought, buying army boots as a metaphor for strength. The weight of them grounding him in this new world, why he was a creature of flight, even if his wings were not aligned. I wish to tell you, if at all, that he is still alive. Refuge. Sitting on the edge of our island, the promised land for some, we disciples, the fishermen, perform our burdensome task, casting hook after hook. We give you shelter, give you food. This is the free West, you are right, but you have to learn to crawl. Mutate your gills, develop lungs, know your place. You have no land. You are an alien species. Forget the borders, tie up your tongue. Here you are safe, between the walls of this place. Stay put for now, we will decide. Wait, 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 wait. Resilience, the freedom to be who you are without within. When I learned to respect this island, my body, its creative boundaries and endless possibilities, when I became aware of the shimmering breath on its surface, I smiled. Like Gulliver in Lilliput, laughing about the minority complex of the crowds or the narcissistic pride of the powerful, embedded in the realism of materialism, I still cross borders, but now invisibly, not as a victim of legal agreements between nations, but as the heroine of my novel, my own creation, the plot I was the mistress of. It took 30 years, and then, as the ironic twist of this particular story, a pandemic struck. Will we ever be free? Or my boundaries cannot be surmounted, for I have skin and spit. And yet we had to find ways and learn the art of smiling with the eyes.
Thank you, Scilla. Thank you very much. And now you're going to talk
yes.
about... Yeah.
So in the end of this poem referred a little bit at the pandemic, and actually at the height of the pandemic in 2020, Viviana Fiorentino and myself were asked or invited to be part of a project called Against the Odds. And this was a project which was developed by the Center for Creative Practices in Dublin. And they are an organization who are supporting migrant artists. And we developed a poetic dialogue between us in 3 languages, in Italian, Hungarian, and English. And this was what I referred to, that this was the first time I actually translated my own poems into Hungarian and recited them. So it was a very interesting project which we did together. Somewhere it's on YouTube, so you can find it. It's called Neither Here Nor There, The Poetry of Migration. And as a prelude to this dialogue, we created a video poem together, which is, again, it has 3 languages, and it's about how we arrived, the beginning of the story, how we arrived in Northern Ireland. And the interesting bit of this is that I arrived in '98, just after the Good Friday Agreement, very much after the Troubles. And Viviane arrived 13 years later. And I think the video poem also reflects on what happened in society, the development of those 13 years. So perhaps we could view this poem now.
Pioneers. We arrived from our cave into caring hands of friends. These curious midwives delivered us into the world just awoken from its pain. The taxi driver pointed out the crusted houses with empty marks of bomb blasts, but we did not understand. He talked too fast, trying to hide in the present, running away from the past. And we, the fools, leapt into that void, our hands cramped, holding on to the torch, to the key.
Qui abbiamo raccolto, soffiato, io e te, le braci, le cataste di noi, altrove, in un tempo nel quale non pensavamo di poter cambiare. Ora che bruciamo nella fiamma del presente, vanghiamo la cenere del cuore, lasciamo brillare il bagliore e poi alzarsi ancora, ancora, innescare, sempre bruciare, per poi respirare. Arriving, we collected the embers, we blew the heap, was elsewhere, in a time when we thought nothing would have changed us, burning the twigs in a flame of today, spading the ashes, setting free the sparkles, igniting something always burning, the joy of us running along the shore, your fresh bread, my roses and herbs, feeling the warmth, feeling we are living.
Thank you. And so Viviane is going to take on.
Thank you, Angela. I'm very honored to be here tonight. When I was invited by Angela to take part in this project, I was thrilled. And also we had very interesting conversations around the theme, a sanctuary. What is a sanctuary? And my idea, my reflection was that somehow nature and migration are linked. And so I thought that sanctuary, it is something that is sacred to us, as a place where we want to protect what is most important for us. And so from these reflections and questions came the idea that sanctuary can be the planet Earth. In this sanctuary, you, blue-teeth jackdaw or young doe, you overflow the breaker of borders of species. You know it will not matter that you were males or females, your voice is singing, you feel devastation is growing. It's only after our hands have traveled up and down all over our own body now, in this sanctuary, adhering to an invisible current between the two, contemplating and the act of separating. Listen to this never-ending twine, a particle, a whole body made of white roots, hands of water, sea arms pushing to the nucleus of rocks, and the legs stretch out to the sky, cloud and blue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Viviana. That's a poem that is really repays rereading. It's beautiful. And now we're moving on to Phil. Phil Cope.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
I suppose my sanctuary poem, which is called Another Lake, Another Land, as you can see, which I have to warn you is a bit long, so buckle up. It's partly about where I currently live and about, I think, finding a place that fits, about belonging, if you like. I mean, I'm a Cardiff boy, but have lived for the past 35 years or so in one of the smallest of Wales's ex-coal mining valleys, the 6-mile long dead end, in both senses of the word, perhaps, Garrow Valley, which is, even though it's only 6 miles away, is a world away from Wales's capital city. Another lake will offer you some descriptions of the Garrow. Beautiful now, I think, that the pits have gone, although most of the jobs went with them, of course, as well as its referencing of some actual events, the annual visit of peregrine falcons to the valley and the story of the egg board, set alongside my own searching period, travelling well beyond Cardiff and the valleys to discover who I might be, could be. Something I think which is probably often easier, it would seem, when you are somewhere else, whether that's forced or voluntary. And most of my books are dialogues between words and pictures. So the images this time, as I think suggested early on, they're taken from my latest book, which Seren also recently published, as I said, a book entitled The Golden Valley, a visual biography of the Garrow. My poem starts with a quote from, can we go back? Starts with a quote from John Berger. Poetry defies the space that separates, reassembling what has been scattered, equating the reach of a feeling with the reach of the universe. Another lake, another land. A brace of peregrines, monogamous though solitary throughout the year, rendezvous up here each April, drawn by this cliff's magnetism, egged on by legacy. reliable in the knowledge of a ledge, secure on Darren Vower to raise 2 chicks, then leave. Swooping extravagant as sabres, a wing's breadth from these bare rock walls, cut first by mining's desperate housing needs, dead stopping in their hangman's caps, the birds become the air, preaching their gospel of the glide, while benefits scrounging off the valley's welfare state of starlings ripped open at the breast, the occasional gull crucified on claws, an unfortunate pigeon, some unlucky ducks. These birds are fastest when they're taking life, fundamentalist in midair, hanging on to something living, struggling, true, at least for that one moment. Their quarry stunned by a single savage hit, then slashing cleanly across a soft and yielding neck. Constantly redrawing the atlas of the heavens, these aerial cartographers understand the rainfall's varied meanings, the weather's moods and colours, absorbing in their feathers the merest rumours of strong winds or storms, offering the dream of weightlessness in the grip of the certainty of death. The Garrow Valley stones only fall in one direction, dead weights to a history which mixes nature's skin and river's veins within our nation's harshest and most visible lessons. The rocks, all synonyms for work and suffering. The wind, the finest antonyms for violation, though clearer now, of mining's stink and dust. Our fossil waters running clear and resurrected towards the always generous arms of the sea. Earth's urgent vocation was interrupted here at coal before the pressures of a few more millennia might have presented us instead a chest of diamonds to disinter. Free falling like these stones, this water, these birds. I'm remembering that lift that Easter on our way to India, hitchhiking away from Christianity and towards something else, something out of reach. Sat on sacks of grain in the back of a beat-up Turkish truck, crossing the bridge that crossed the Bosphorus, stared at by eyes that wouldn't we imagine then recognize Big Ben or Shakespeare, democracy, or even Jesus Christ, us too here as voluntary asylum seekers after a kind of simpler wisdom, working backwards through our dusty book of faiths. We both confessed that night that we had said something like a prayer, fearing in those moments for our lives, our certainties collapsing, challenged by this new, this strange. Billy'd watched the falcons fly, so beautiful and cruel. He admired their independence, their sovereignty in the kingdom of the empty air, and dreamt, like me, of soaring buoyant over school day bullies and his dad, of swimming during playtimes high above slate roofs, capped heads, swooping in figures of 8 and perching precarious on gutterings, though largely ignored by those below, despite our fantastic feats of overcoming gravity and fear. So Billy climbed one dawn to claim 2 tiny oval suns, bursting orange, red, and brown, and promising something different, something pure. His fingers gripping hard on shifting rock, feet searching out the confidence of firm and level ground, a ledge on something. And while he pulled perpendicular against all reason up to his hoped-for little heavens, some prophet in the valley below sliced off the top of a breakfast egg as a forest of new trees cut through the fragile shell of that morning sun, spilling gold over the newborn land. But taking both eggs home, proud to show his mam, he found her angry at his crime against the parenting birds and all our other fragile human futures too, perhaps, and being scolded, climbed back up again to the vacuum of the nest. But one missed hold, one single loosened finger, and he's falling to the rock's sharp rest below, eggs and head and body smashed on ancient quarried stone. No fledgling birds this spring, no empty tomb, no Lazarus, no boy to man. The river only flows downhill, and even if you are a bird, you only get one chance to launch yourself off from this bone-picked shelf. The smallest fraction more than no chance for a child. Women washed the body in those days, but not the eggs stain off the stone. This was the right of rain and wind, and as night fell, men used to digging harder rock, dug yielding soil for a single narrow grave. I read somewhere that painters nearing the completion of their canvases sometimes insist upon a viewing of their work within a mirror or even upside down, believing that this might disclose a purer form, a more real meaning. The boy floated up like a bird of prey, or like a dream beyond the sky's sheer walls, living now only in the air's thin memories, as pages from a bright cloud library were scattered by the breeze, a biography unwritten, while far off, above Mynydd Llangina, safe for the moment from more human interference, two birds rearranged the atoms of the air. Shadows scarring the land in their flight path, eclipses of dandelion and daisy, of leaf and worm, they watched the world silent through the rain's soft christening. And in the wind and water ruffled mirror of the lake above the pit that once dug our lives and cut our throats, the sky was still reflecting charcoal grey and deepest blue. And above the lake, the real land, the real sky sat undisturbed beyond our command. And above the real sky, another lake, another land.
Thank you very much, Phil. That's a poem in which we travel far and wide, and yet it all hangs together. It will be a treat when you eventually get to read it on the page. I'm going to read now a poem called There Must Be Somewhere. There must be somewhere that is safe from violation. Childhood, being son or daughter, pregnancy, old age, infirmity, none of these. The corridors of hospitals, asylums, refuges, places we thought were sacrosanct, are roamed by predators. And though the innocent fox has his earth and the birds of the air their nests, we are unhoming ourselves and ravaging even our own minds. Yet we hope for sanctuary, a nook out of the wind, shelter in the cooch of someone's overcoat, a harbouring gaze, if nothing else. I often think about that song, The Parting Glass. The last toast raised, the one who has to leave steps out across the threshold into the turbulent night. That brilliant room where the worst of him was known, forgiven, shouldered, remains his compass, carried always. Nowhere is safe. We know that. And we know that somewhere is because we've been there irrefutably, and we can find it. Open its door, return to the welcome that we left. We'll go now to Glenn, right, because Glenn has written a song which he will tell you about.
Thank you, Angela. Just like I said, thanks to Angela for including me in this project. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's not too often you get sort of the generosity with someone else's work, but this is really where this song sort of come from. It's from all those different ideas, that poems of sanctuary, and it's also then when it was finally decided what the title of the book was going to be, it sort of then suggested me the chorus and then the sort of the title by extension, and so it's called There Must Be Somewhere. And just thank you very much for letting me share it with you tonight.
Seeking a face that shines upon me, seeking a place, finally run free. The fear of the unknown cuts both ways. My dreams sink or swim in the before. Keep my eyes looking for the far shore. Today is so far from yesterday. Above the surface, above us all, there must be somewhere. Above the surface, above us all, place to go home. What I've seen colors what I will see. What I was, not what I will be. I can close my eyes, but it stings. Hope is the life raft that I cling to. Home is a songbird who will sing to. The dove returns on eager wings. Above the surface, above us all, there must be somewhere.
It's wonderful. I was really moved when I heard Glenn's song for the first time because it's a very clear demonstration of what I think all us poets have felt, which is material, if you like, that is inside me has somehow gone into Glenn, and vice versa. So it's absolutely wonderful to have a song called, There Must Be Somewhere, a Place to Call Home. So it's a real privilege for me, this interchange. So I'm going to end by reading a poem called Home, which is I think the last one in the book. Home. As I spoke, I realized that he was listening, that he had opened up some room inside himself, and there was the hallway beckoning me towards a door, giving onto a sunlit living space that I could enter, my burden in my arms. And when I'd placed it on his table, we would together loosen its bonds, consider it quietly. What we were talking of, I don't remember now, but that he on his threshold stood aside to let me in, that has never left me. He gave me living proof that this is how we're meant to be, capable of choosing to welcome someone in, and that when that person does the same for us, he is our shelter. We are a home for one another. And this holds true for everyone. I wonder if that poem was partly prompted by my first video call with Viviana, because we didn't know each other. And in fact, apart from myself and Phil and Maher, excuse me, the rest of us have never actually met in person. And I remember Viviana telling me about her work. And then she asked me, and what do you do? And I started talking. And Viviana was really listening. And you can feel that sometimes. I know I was talking, but I was aware that Viviana had really, a real quality of listening, and that stayed with me. So thank you, Viviana. So that's us at the end now, Sarah.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all our readers. We do have Mick, so I am going to hand him over to him for a quick few words on behalf of Sarah.
Thanks very much, Sarah. I'm sorry for my technical difficulties at the beginning of the event. My apologies to the authors, to Sarah, and especially to Angela. I may not have been able to speak then, but I didn't miss a word of the readings, which were great, so thank you all. And I'm delighted that Sarah's been able to publish Sanctuary and to host a wonderful event like this. Congratulations to Angela for creating this beautiful book about such a current and compelling subject. You've done this in your usual, customary, clear-sighted way and have gathered such an interesting group of collaborators. The book has a necessary feeling, and I hope members of the audience will feel the necessity to buy it, either from the Sarum website or from bookshops, and spread the word, because it's a book which repays multiple readings. So thanks to everyone for coming tonight. We hope you've enjoyed the poems and the song and the film and the photographs. Take care, stay safe, and good night.